you, Precious, for that very heavy introduction. My name is Femi Johnson, and I think we are all, almost everybody on the platform this morning. We've been one way or the other having a connection and communicating. So I wouldn't want to do much of my introduction, but let's just go down to the event of today. The sourcing mentorship program. I think the first person actually tried to introduce what we are trying to do this morning. What we are trying to do this morning actually is to help African youth to be able to deliver on what is expected of them in the 21st century. And this can be seen from a different perspective, even though of recent, talking about COVID and all that has happened with that, a lot of reality is actually certain, which made the truth more obvious. So looking at what we have before us, which is 5 years plan to actually upskill 5 million Africans, it's a whole lot. And we've been working very hard for the past, let's say, 2 years to make sure that we make this a reality. I would like to start a bit from the historical part. I normally love to do that because it's a part of me talking about history, the importance of mentorship. Why should we have this at a point like this for Africa? Mentorship, when we're talking about mentorship for Africa, we are looking at tackling or addressing one of the major problems of the continent, which has to do with unemployment. And when you talk about so many problems and challenges of Africa, as if we have so many of it, but we actually do not have so many of it. The problem in Africa is actually can be subsumed into one challenge, and that has to do with job. Many times when I've had opportunity to speak at events, I've always talked about the issue of unemployment in Africa and what can be done to solve it. So if you want to tackle the issue of unemployment in Africa or the issue of the so many challenges of Africa, it's just about talking about resolving the problem of job. Many times people talk about the economy of United States, economy, European economy, development, innovation, technology, and all of that. All of these things are seated on one thing, and that is job. And that is why if you look at countries that are doing very well, when they are talking about their economy or they are going into political activities, they want to hear from political leaders as to how you want to enhance employment. Because once employment is sorted out, the society will function properly. Once employment is sorted out, there will be no poverty. Once employment is sorted out and there is no poverty, then crime will be reduced and eliminated. Once crime is reduced and there is no poverty, even what you call today as terrorism or religious fundamentalism, which is rooted in poverty, and which has to do, totally connected with unemployment. Because if you're talking about fundamentalism today, you'll be talking about the Middle East, or talking about Asia, or more importantly, Africa, and you want to talk about Nigeria. So most of these problems are rooted in unemployment. So once unemployment is addressed, and I tell you that the 60 to 70% of the problem of Africa will be solved. And now, when we're talking about the issue of unemployment, then we want to start zeroing down to the aspect of the group of people that should be addressed, or that should be attended to, which is the youth. And for us to be able to do that, then it brought us down to the importance of mentorship. And while I was doing studies around this whole project, and I began to go into both the Bible and history to understand more about mentorship. And I discovered that one of the earliest civilization, or the oldest kingdom that ever existed, which is the Babylonia, the kingdom of Babylonia, the Persian, I think the Persian kingdom of Babylonia, under Nebuchadnezzar II, actually adopted this strategy. I actually found that in Daniel chapter 1, when the king actually asked his ministers to go looking for youth that are talented, youth that are vibrant, youth that have potentials, to bring them together and to train them on how to be able to help the nation. And that was what happened. So when you start hearing some names in the Bible like Daniel, like Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, even though these names are not forthcoming in history, but you can draw a connection between both the history of the kingdom of Babylonia under Nebuchadnezzar II and what actually happened in Daniel chapter 1, and realize that the secret to the development and the growth of one of the biggest empire in the ancient time was rooted in the strategy of developing the youth. So that shows us actually the power of mentorship. And also from there, I was able to deduce that actually because of that mentorship program, Daniel, who happened to be a foreigner from another country, actually emerged today as the biggest freelancer, in human history. He was a young guy who actually was able to, because what he was doing there is consulting. And this is what I want to address in the issue of freelancing. When we talk about freelancing, many people think that freelancing is for people who don't have jobs, or freelancing is for people who are not privileged to work in oil and gas and or have a stable means of income. And so they try to hustle, like we call it in Nigeria. That's actually not the idea. Freelancing is actually what people with specialized skills do, because another word for freelancing is actually called consulting. So you have some of big names out there, and you don't call them freelancers, you call them consultant, and you feel respected when you're called consultant, but you want to feel less valued when you are called freelancer. And being a freelancer actually means that if you are not part of an organization, but that organization actually needs your specialized skills to be able to improve on themselves and be able to get better value. And so even though you are not part of them, they have to hire your expertise for them to be able to function better, or for them to be able to deliver better results. And that was what happened in the case of Daniel. Daniel wasn't a Babylonian, it was a Jew. And in the record of the Bible, we were able to see that he actually he was consulted for 4 kings, 4 different generations. And this was actually revealing to me the power of mentorship. So now, if the Babylonians were able to develop a strategy around youth empowerment mentorship, which led to the most successful Persian kingdom during that period, it also means that if Africa is going to come out of the current situation of challenges that face us, we have to look at how to enhance and energize our powerhouse, because the powerhouse of every society is the youth, is the powerhouse. The old people, most of the time, the older, of course, they are the leaders and all of that, but the powerhouse of every nation is actually the youth. That's why you have the likes of Mark Zuckerberg and the rest of them across the United States. You see what they do to power the economy of America, because the power lies with them. And with the aids of technology, I tell you that the youth have become more powerful, even though because of lack of mentorship, this power is being abused. And that's why you have cases of saying, oh, in Africa today, we have what is called Yahoo boys. We have all kind of bad names that are being used for those who are taking advantage of internet, because their energy were not properly guided and channeled. All the people you call Yahoo boys today are actually smart guys that should be enriching the economy of Africa. These are people that should be building super solid multinational, multi-continental organizations, because they have understood how to take advantage of technology and use it, manipulate it to do something wonderful. But because they were not guarded and their strength were not properly pruned, and they had to go the wrong way. And that's why today you talk about Africans, oh, there are 419, there are fraudsters, scam from Africa. Those guys are smart, but their energy were not properly coordinated. If you look at that, like that Daniel chapter 1, something amazing was said by the king. He said they should look for young people who are cunning in knowledge. The word cunning can also be applied as a word being manipulative, but that is in the wrong side of it. The word cunning actually means smart. Young people who are smart, who are able to provide solutions, who are able to see problem and turn it around. So so many people you see in Africa today that you tagged as scammers are actually talented people who have potential of becoming Daniel of this generation. And if I were to speak of myself a bit, I would say today I'm actually a product of mentorship. And I would like to talk about that in the next 3 minutes because of my time. In year 2011, okay, I was in my final year in University of Lagos. When I came to Unilag, I came in to study law. I wanted to study law, and somehow I couldn't study law, so I ended up in history and strategic studies. So while I was studying history, I began to have this concern about my career, that I wanted to be a lawyer, and today I'm going to be a historian. And I'm actually in a country where historians are not believed to be people who can become something significant in life. And I began to have that challenges, in my mind as a young man. And towards the end of my graduation in 2011, because I started 2007, then World Bank came to Unilag looking for young people they could actually put up for a mentorship program. And I actually applied for the exam. I sat for the exam and I was able to pass the exam. And the exam was a mentorship program on business outsourcing. So I was able to take that program for 3 months, sponsored by the World Bank. And that's why I will use this platform to say again, thank you, World Bank. So why I was being worried, why I was under fear that after graduation, I won't be able to do so much with my life. And here come an opportunity for me to learn something new. And it was then I was exposed to business outsourcing, and I began to see what Bangladesh, what India, what China, what the Southeast Asian countries, there's Brazil or South Africa, and many countries of Europe, what they are doing with outsourcing. I began to hear stuff about call center. I began to hear stuff about back-end office, I began to hear a lot of things. Then that was how I was able to have a redirection from what can I do with my life to, I can now go into business outsourcing. So that was how through World Bank, my vision was birthed in what you can see today that I do. So you can see today, you can't call me historian, you can call me a business outsourcing specialist because of mentorship. And from that time, I've known and I've realized, and that's why when I started business outsourcing, I began to major in training because I could realize the power of knowledge transfer. And essentially, that is what we want to do. In as much that SourceIn.Business is a platform where we develop for for consultants or freelancers and employers to be able to connect and exchange service and value and service. We realize that there is this knowledge gap that must be covered, and that can only be done through mentorship. And that was actually what led to what we have today. And I would want to use this platform to say special thank you to the World Bank once more, because if they didn't actually initiate that project, what is going on today wouldn't take place, because I would either probably be a teacher of history or trying to find something to do with my life or be among the population who are tagged unemployed in Africa today. But that mentorship changed all of that. And that is why I'm very strong in my conviction that this mentorship is going to change the life of 5 million Africans. And I can't even wait to see that. Honestly, I can't wait to see that. And that's why I'm actually committed and giving all. And, dragging as many people I could drag around the world for us to come together to be able to achieve this. And also, on the final note, let me say that one other person that also inspired me to know that this is possible is actually Mr. Tony Lumelo, who is through his foundation, Tony Lumelo Foundation, that has been empowering young people who are struggling to raise capital to start up their business. And when that started, I said, this is what I've been thinking about. Even though I don't have that billions of dollars, to push out for startups. No, I can create a platform where without capital, you can actually start a career in freelancing and be able to earn a lot of money. Okay, then I also want to say special thank you to all the people in studio this morning. Some of you, most of you, we have never met physically. We have only reached out to you online, and you have been so magnanimous. All of you, I'm amazed at the level of which you're so passionate about African development. I'm so amazed, and I realize that the African solving African issues is not left to Africa alone. Because we Africans believe that, oh, it is only Africa that will take care of Africa. But we have come to realize now that the entire world is actually hoping to take care of Africa. And I also want to say, use this level to say that you don't know one thing, that Africa is very much ready to contribute constructively. I normally say something about Africans that are outside, that are in Europe and America. I call them the remnant of Africa. Because when you look at what Africans are doing in UK, what Africans are doing in America, and I would say particularly what Nigerians are doing in US, in Canada, and in Europe, and you were like, wow, these guys are solid. Now, let me tell you what you don't know. What you don't know is that those people are remnants of African talent. The bulk African talent is still powerfully seated in Africa. And it is through freelancing that startups around the world can be able to access this wealth of human resources in Africa. And I tell you that it's going to be a win-win for every one of us, because we're going to be contributing to you. When you outsource to Africa, it's cheaper than when you outsource to Asia. That's what I'm going to tell you. Because in Africa, we know how to manage our electricity. We know how to manage our water. Our cost of living is quite